All right, welcome everybody. I'm super excited for another She evening. Today we have an amazing speaker. So I'm going to share my screen really quick for those who are new. Um, she is on a mission to help 1 million women create wealth through real estate while fostering personal, professional, and spiritual growth. So welcome everybody, and thank you for being part of this mission. Of course, I can do it alone. Uh, this is where we all come together and do our own part, right? So welcome everybody. We are live on Facebook, so turn on your camera, smile, and those who are on Facebook, feel free to join us directly on Zoom so you can ask questions, interact. We're gonna be here, so the link is below. You can join us. Okay, a little disclaimer. We are a real estate investment firm. We offer different investment opportunities. We are in business, and that means sometimes, we have to understand what we're doing. Today, we're gonna talk a lot about that, right? All the due diligence and understanding what we're doing. Every investor, every speaker that we bring has different investment opportunities or different products or services. We do not endorse any of them. We bring them because we have paths with them and we really like them or we really want to learn from them. So before getting into business, just like anything else, please understand what you're doing. We have two sponsors that I'm super excited to share tonight. One is Be Well. If you are just like anything like me, that we try to stay away from doctors and medicine and chemicals, this is a place that you need to be. You need to consult with Dr. Lucy. She is a holistic pharmacist, everything natural. So, just connect with her. If you have any kind of health problems or just to prevent, right? Like we always want to be on the safe side of preventing in a natural way. So reach out to them. That's their phone number. I'll put the links on the chat as well, so you can reach out to them. And on the right side, we have taxes, right? We all here in real estate, in business, we understand that it's really not how much money you make, but how much money you keep. And it's super, super important to strategize. There's so many strategies that we can use in real estate. So you have a free consultation with them. I'll put the link below so you can connect with them. Ask any questions, even if you're a real estate investor, if you're in business, just to strategize for 2026. On the next February, I think it'll be the 17th. She will be here on our next session to talk about taxes and prepare for 2026. So if you have any questions, please reach out to her. And just really quick, here's some pictures of events that we host all over the place. Different cities. Right now I'm focusing a lot just staying in Houston just because it's limited time that I have. But if you guys want to host or if you are in different cities and you want to host events, let me know. And just a little bit, about why are we here? Why she's so important, right? Why is so important for women to start taking responsibility of their financial life? So number one, women live 5 to 7 years longer than men on average. So that means we need to fund longer retirements, and sometimes we don't count on that. Women are more likely to take career breaks. Sometimes we choose to do it, and sometimes that's life, right? Either growing a family, taking care of elderly parents, or a lot of other things. So we just need to be prepared when we take those career breaks that we still having income coming in, right? 80% of women will be solely responsible for their financial lives at one point, either divorce, death, remaining single. It's different reasons. So it's important to start, taking responsibility. Another very important is women start investing later, on average 7 to 10 years after men. Sometimes I think it's just because we feel like we're not prepared, or we just want to wait for the very right opportunity, and years go by and deals keep happening. Most women are not tax strategists. Even though taxes are often their number one lifetime expense for all of us. So that's why it's so important. I put the link on the chat. You can book a call with Gabby and ask her any questions that you have, and some things that she can help you strategize. Last but not least, and this is probably my favorite, when women take control of their finances, the entire family changes, right? And I see not only their families, but communities, our church, everything around us changes when we make more money. So super important for us to take responsibility of our financial life. All right. Well, one more thing, one upcoming event that we have in Houston. It's Valentine's Day. We're gonna celebrate Valentine's Day over some coffee, flowers, and just connected with like-minded women who get it, women who understand what we're doing, investing, businesses. So join us. The link is on the chat. You can purchase your ticket there. And
And now, here's someone you want to hear from, our sponsor.
For over 15 years, Skyline Title has been a trusted name in Texas real estate. From first-time homebuyers to seasoned investors, our team ensures a smooth, reliable closing experience every time. Backed by a decade of partnerships and proven success, we take pride in protecting your biggest investment, your home. Visit SkylineHTX.com to learn more.
all right, let's get to our speaker, because I know so many of you were interested on getting to know our speaker today. The topic is super hard, building a roadmap to quit your 9 to 5 and transitioning full time into either real estate or business, whatever you want, right? So today we have Vessi. She is the founder of Dream Believe Achieve Capital Group, a real estate investment firm based in Los Angeles, California. Bessie grew up in Bulgaria behind the Iron Curtain. Initially, Bessie took the traditional path of going to school, getting a job, and focusing on climbing the corporate ladder of success. A few events of adversity led her to discover that she had been climbing the wrong ladder, and that is when she started learning about real estate and it became her passion. Today, Vessi manages a portfolio of real estate properties in Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida. And she's also passively invested in deals as a passive investor. So, Vessi, welcome to She.
Thank you so much, Jazmin, for having me, for the warm welcome. Really look forward to our conversation, adding value to the audience, and hopefully everyone will take at least one golden nugget from what we discussed today and they can apply it in their own investment journey. So really appreciate the opportunity and really appreciate being here today.
Of course. Thank you for being here. I'm super excited. So, well, before we get into the topic for today, tell us a little bit about your background, your story, and, experiences that shape you, on who you are today.
Absolutely. Yes, and I appreciate that you shared that in the introduction. But I grew up at a very different time, very different place, as you mentioned, in Bulgaria, growing up behind the Iron Curtain. And I vividly remember at the time, I mean, travel was very difficult to begin with. And I remember, so my mom said when I was 7 or 8 years old, she said, if you learn English, I'll send you abroad. And I have no idea how she was going to do that because it was literally impossible to travel at the time. But I wanted to see the world behind the Iron Curtain. So I learned English. Now, by the time that all happened, the wall had fallen, travel was easier, and she actually fulfilled her promise. But that really started lit the fire further, if you will, in my belly, and it was my dream to come and study in the US. For me, there was no plan B. The only way to make that happen was to earn a full scholarship. That was it. Otherwise, it would not have been possible. So I very much focused on academics, and that's how I made things happen. And feel very blessed to had the opportunity to come here and build a life. But I share all this with you because when I was growing up in Bulgaria, as I reflect back on my journey, I think that's when the seed of real estate was planted in me because there was no stock market. And when people talked about investments at the time, they talked about hard assets, real estate, and not necessarily even cash flowing real estate. It was just the opportunity to own a home, pass that on from generation to generation, and gold, silver, all of that. I mean, hard assets. So I I came to the US, got on the what I call the more traditional path of going to school, getting good grades, and vividly remember at the time it was early 2000, right? And what success was painted as at the time was being a CEO of a public company. So I was like, okay, I'll join corporate America and start climbing that corporate ladder. And along the way, I guess the universe was sending me clues. I didn't quite pick them up all on time, so it all culminated. But the first was there was the big Enron scandal, right, which then left a lot of people with decimated retirement portfolios. Then my own employer going through restructures, and the last but one I vividly remember when I got a text from my colleague who was at the same position I was at saying, "Hey, I won't see you today. I got laid off." And he had a very quirky sense of humor. And so I thought, don't joke about these things. Don't call that type of energy to yourself. And he's like, no, no, I got laid off. So I walked into the office that day and 70% of my colleagues were gone. Like no notice, nothing. Management was not around. Finally, we found someone on the phone to share the news with us. And it was tough. That was tough to live through because these were people I had been working with for years. Some were in their early 60s, but not ready to retire. Others were um, very, very talented, very bright individuals. And my colleague was laid off. I was, and we were at similar position. And I thought, well, what if that happens to me? And probably I was spared. These are cost decisions, right? Probably I was spared because I was making less money. So I felt very fortunate that God at the time gave me a little bit of a leeway, and very grateful that I picked up the signals. But at that point of time, I thought, what if this happens to me, right? What if my firm goes through another corporate restructure and I'm next and single income earner for the family, right? How do you manage that? Of course, you go and find another job, but what if the market is not conducive to that? And that's where I think I fell back to what I call the roots, which is real estate. And I figured, well, I'll buy a single family home and with my tiny little retirement if something happens. And I did just that. Now, I do live in California, meaning in Los Angeles more specifically. And so very difficult to find a property that's cash flowing, and also the average home price here is $1 million. Today, it wasn't that at the time, but still high. It was high six figures. I did not have that much liquidity to buy it all cash. So that led me to start looking out of state. That was really the only option. But I'm so glad I overcame that fear because that tiny little home eventually led me to buy a duplex, then eventually 11 unit. And now I buy 100 plus unit apartment buildings, not alone, but with other investors, and help them do very much what I started doing. And happy that I did that and that I overcame those fears, because and now I know we'll maybe touch upon this, but a couple years after that event where I walked into my office or got that text at 7:30 a.m. from my colleague, I walked into my office 9:30 a.m. with a routine meeting with my manager, and I got laid off. Our entire team they pretty much shut down the division I was part of. So I took a deep breath, but thankfully that time I was prepared because I had been investing in real estate and I had income coming in And what that provided me with was the optionality to choose, do I start something on my own, which I always dreamt of doing and wanted to do, and the layoff in a way accelerated that decision, or stay down the traditional corporate America path. And so I chose the road less taken, but none of this would have happened without taking those steps and starting on the investment journey. So I know I shared a lot, so let me pause for a second.
Yeah, no, this is really good because now you give us the whole picture, right? I think all of us have that risk that, even if we're solo entrepreneurs, like our business and today's economy, like we all have the risk, like we can have it all today and tomorrow something happens and it's just, we gotta start from scratch. So let's take, like you decided to start investing in real estate and buying a house, right? While you were
Mhm.
working, right? Having that income. So walk us through that, I mean, for somebody who is having a high income job, but they don't know
Mhm.
anything about real estate and you didn't know anything, right?
Mhm.
So, and then on top of that, you start investing out of state because you were in California. So, how do you do that? How do you recommend somebody to start taking the first step into real estate or taking that risk into it
Mhm.
could be business?
So the very first thing I would recommend is education, right? And getting yourself educated, figuring out where is one area where I feel maybe more passionate, because real estate is also so broad, right? I started with a single family home because that was more achievable, something that would allow me to do it on my own. There are people who start with 100-unit apartment buildings. I didn't start that way, right? There are people who do wholesaling. I mean, there's so many ways to get involved in the business. And so it first starts with a conversation to try to figure out what is an area that's at least somewhat interesting to me, because that will then uh, further inspire you to learn more. And the educational aspect is extremely important, because at the end of the day, whether you invest just for yourself in your own portfolio or you help other people's do the same, you're a fiduciary, whether that's fiduciary to yourself or to investors, and you need to be in a position to make an informed investment decision that's right for you, right? Just because a deal was right for me doesn't mean it will be right for you, because you have a very different risk tolerance, very different investment goals. So starting with education, and in my on my end, I did have a slight advantage. So the job I was doing was actually a commercial lender. I started at the bottom and eventually worked my way up to a point where I was effectively the credit risk manager, handling $1 billion plus multinational portfolio. So working with middle market companies, importers, exporters, that have significant either overseas exposure through a subsidiary, or perhaps they're a US sub of a large parent. When I did get promoted, I was transferred to the domestic division, and in that office, about 30% of our book was commercial real estate, multifamily being a big portion of it, but also industrial, commercial, retail, special purpose properties like schools, churches, gas stations, and whatnot. So that gave me a lot of exposure. Now from a lending aspect, and as a lender, you typically evaluate the downside. You think about the risks and what can go wrong. That's because at the end of the day, you're looking to protect the principal, and you're very much looking to do that as an investor, meaning not lose money and protect the principal. But as an investor, you have to evaluate the upside, the future profitability, the returns. That's making sure you're equally compensated for the risk. And so I very quickly recognized I don't necessarily have that background. So I started going, initially it was all local meetups, educational events, communities like yours. I mean, she didn't exist at the time. So I feel that the ladies here, or perhaps those catching the recording, are very fortunate to have a resource like that to connect with fellow investors. But that's really where it started. I was
Ah,
reading.
Sorry, no, but just like,
Yeah,
this is super important to mention because just like you say, like, right, you have all the exposure and just your
yes.
career, like pretty much you just leverage everything that you've been working for somebody else on
Mhm.
your own. And I want to share here really quick about
Mhm.
myself because I
Yeah,
started the same way, but I just didn't have any background in real estate, right? Like my background is like I had a couple business degrees and then I was just saving money because I wanted to start my own business, but I didn't know anything about real estate. So some of you are
yeah,
probably on that path, like, okay, I'm saving money to start investing, but I don't know anything about real estate. So that was me, right? So you have Bessie when she had the corporate background, but I didn't know.
yeah.
For me, and we're gonna break down this part, but for me, I was like, okay, since I don't understand anything about real estate, I just want to find, what's easier for me, right? For me, it was
Right.
easier just to buy a piece of land,
Mhm.
right? So, because I don't have to deal with tenants, I don't have to deal with builders, the city permits. Like, there's so many things. So, just like Vessi say, the strategy, but for me it was like, okay, let me buy a piece of land, at least I know I own this piece of land. If anything, it's just gonna appreciate. Real estate, this just goes up, right, regardless of what happens. So that was, my side. Like I didn't have the real estate background and the strategy. It depends, you talk about like what's your risk tolerance and, are you looking for cash flow, or do you have other sources of income, right? And, I really want to talk about that, right? Because sometimes we say like, yeah, I want to be a full-time real estate investor or I want to start my own business. But we also need to focus on how much cash flow do I need, right? Do I
Right.
have something like, for example, in real estate, sometimes it takes years to start getting the money, right? So let's talk about the strategy of what is the right investment for you. I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. So, I think I was very clear up front, right, with my criteria. I was not looking to do something risky, something that would, again, I had a full-time job, so it wasn't something that I was looking to do actively. And I started with a single family home. It's still active, right? But in that case, you're hiring a local property manager. They're the ones calling tenants, right, knocking on doors, collecting the rent, doing all of that. So um while it is active and you still have to fully do your diligence right on the market and the property as well as the property manager who would be handling the day-to-day operations, you can actually do that while working a full-time job. Once you find the deal, evaluate the numbers. I mean, hopefully, yeah, things do happen. It's not a like an uneventful experience, but hopefully it's more routine, right? Maintenance calls and things like that that they would handle. Um, and like and so for me it was important to have like a relatively low risk profile and then something that cash flows, right? And in today's market, right, very difficult to find properties that cash flow, but maybe that means you have to put more money down. And in that case, I did that, right, with the first property. I think it was like 50% down what I put, and that's like a no at the time for any investor. You get 80% leverage. That's another thing. Figure out what is your risk tolerance from a leverage perspective. Mine wasn't, and still is today, nothing more than 70%. Just again based on my experience, but um, putting more money down enabled me to get to a point where the property had a very healthy cash flow, enough to cover operational expenses, property management fees, taxes, insurance, and then still leave some income. And eventually I refinanced. So now it's this, I still own this property. So it's infinite returns at this point because I've recouped my initial capital. So maybe that sometimes requires you to do unconventional things to mitigate the risk, mitigate the exposure, and make sure that um, that the property fits your goals and your investment in your investment profile. But just wanted to finish one more thought in terms of how I found the property. It was actually at the real estate meetup, and there was one investor, a frequent speaker, and he would always say, Hey, if you have any questions about out-of-state investing, call me. So one day I called him. I said, "Hey, do you know anyone who who sells properties in out of state?" And he happened to own a company that does that type of business. And at that time, um, part of the reason why I share that is because it's not easy. It's definitely there are a lot of fears that you have to overcome with when you're doing something new, something unknown. But when you've done your homework, when you've gotten educated, you've done your research, you've done your diligence, you won't have necessarily the perfect information or perfect situation. And how you push through that fear is through taking thoughtful and inspired action. And so I at that time I was ready mentally. I figured if I don't start now, I don't know when. And you can get into this analysis paralysis of getting the perfect strategy and then not doing anything for years. And I love that you made the point about real estate. It does take time. You're not going to get wealthy by buying one home, but that will get you started on a path that after a period of time gets you there. So it's definitely not a get rich quick path, but it is something that allows you to build optionality and wealth over a long period of time, right? When I reached that point of optionality, and for me, the definition was getting enough income from rentals to cover basic living expenses. Um, or that was stage one at least for me. That's when it took a number of years, probably I want to say 7 to 8 years, right? And it was not just one property, it was stacking those income streams until you get there. So definitely don't expect wonders or miracles right from day one, and approach it with a more of a long-term mindset in mind.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important that you said like you start investing, but let's go back a little bit. Like she kept her full-time job, right, for
Right.
years after. And then when she got laid off, like she already had her portfolio. And that's I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see in the industry. Of course, in a bigger scale, right? Like a multifamily. Because people say, like, yeah, instead of owning a house, you own a building that has 100 units. Yeah, that's even better, right? Like, you have income for 100 units. Yes, but everything is bigger. The loan is bigger. The expenses
Mm-hmm.
are bigger. And, there is a pie that needs to be shared with a lot of more people than just
Mm-hmm.
yourself. So those are things to consider. Like, you're not gonna get cash flow probably year one or year two. Sometimes, and in today's market, like we have deals that we're not getting cash flow until we sell them. That's year
Mm-hmm.
five, right? So we gotta be prepared for that. And that's why I tell people, like, don't underestimate your job. I know the dream is to be
Mm-hmm.
full-time real estate investor or business owner, but just
Mm-hmm.
having that income that,
Mm-hmm.
if anything goes out with the property or if you need to put in some money, like you have
Right.
that income, right? So I think that's, another super, super important point that I wanted to highlight. And just like Vessi say, like for me, when I bought my first piece of land, like I bought it and I was like, wait, I started learning about real estate. I told you I did things my own way, right? Like I started learning and I was like, wait a minute. I started learning about underwriting and I'm like, I didn't buy such a good piece of land. I paid higher than anybody else in the neighborhood. It was on the floodplain. So I was like, whoa, this is not as good as I thought I was. And it was, right? Because I trust somebody else. And, that's a whole nother topic. But she mentioned like, that's why it's so important to be responsible and understand, make informed decisions, right? For me, it was just like, let's do it, right? I mean, at the same time, I don't regret because first of all, I didn't lose any money. I bought it for 40,000, sold it for 45,000, and do it over again. But it gave me the opportunity to start. Let's just start and keep going one more time. So that's I want to go back to you before we get into all that into more deals. But what do you think about all these strategies that we just mentioned?
Oh, absolutely. I would always recommend double dip for as long as you can, meaning keep your job. And that's I mean, for a lot of people, right? Unless you're a business owner where the business or you own multiple businesses that are feeding, right, that income stream, that's your primary, right, source of liquidity, cash flow, capital, investable capital. So definitely keep your job for as long as you can handle until you build a portfolio that's large enough to give you the income that you desire. And again, for different people, different stages of life, that number may vary. And do the math, right, to figure it out. What are my monthly expenses? If you're saving for additional needs, whether that's college education for kids or maybe care for elderly parents, whatever that may be, add that and then add a little bit of cushion to that number to figure out, okay, then this is the income I'll need to be generating, right, from passive investments to not materially change, right, my lifestyle and that of my loved ones, and then work backward from there. It's like, okay, well, if that's the income I need, what does that mean from a return perspective? Okay, and if that's the return I need, what does that mean from amount of investable cash, right, I need to have deployed at any point of time? And not all of us start with 1, 2, or 3 million deployed at any point of time. Oftentimes it's okay, $50,000. But I also want to make sure I make a point. It ultimately it also boils what sacrifices are you willing to make, right? There's no free lunch, there is a cost. And like in my case, I was very I mean, I didn't grow up in an ultra wealthy family or wealthy environment. I mean, I had a comfortable life, I still do, but I don't necessarily do a lot of luxury if you call them activities, right? And so if that also enabled me to have created more options for me, right? When the layoff happened, yes, I had enough income to cover basic living expenses, but I was okay with that, right? I was okay with not having to go out and eat out every day or every week, things like that. So there are some adjustments you may have to make to your lifestyle to get to your dream goal sooner, right? I remember bonus times. I will be talking to some of my colleagues, and they're like, "What are you gonna buy with your bonus?" And they all talk about the purses and the shoes. And I'm like, I love purses and shoes, but like, I actually want to save that money and invest it. And that was my choice. Again, there's no right or wrong. It ultimately boils down to what's comfortable for you. But if I had gone down the path of doing luxury trips, buying purses, shoes, and all that, I would not have had investable cash to deploy towards real estate. So it's also about making those very intentional, conscious decision, and again, really running the numbers to figure out what does comfort look like for me, and then starting backward from there. And ideally put yourself in a situation where you have multiple income streams, right? And it's not, job is a big one, that's probably the largest one for many people who start. But whether that's investment, maybe you do some consulting on the side, and whatever it is, like of course spousal income, that's another stream of income. Just think about how can I layer as many income streams as possible, so if one goes down or dries up, I have other options.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the sacrifices is super important. And those who were on the vision board party here in Houston, we talk about that, right? Like we have these goals of probably investing, buying a second home, multifamily, whatever, starting a business, but it also comes with a lot of sacrifices, right? Like why do I have to sacrifice? Well, maybe that means I'm just gonna go on vacation once a year or none,
Right,
like no
right,
vacation. And especially if you have a spouse, it's like both need to be on the same page. And it's like,
right,
okay, achieving a goal collectively, right? Because if one is into investing and the other one wants to go on vacation every month, is different, right? So
right,
just
right.
aligning, coming together. And there is a thought that I think is super, super important. I don't want it to slip. Uh, you mentioned, and sorry that is a little bit back, but
Uh-huh.
you mentioned that you keep your job and how important is to keep a job that you can leverage in your future. Like I also I started working for a real estate investment firm, and that's where I started like learning about underwriting, buying properties, how the transactions happen, right behind the scenes, all these things that I feel like somebody was paying me to learn, and I was just learning so much, and I didn't have to risk my own capital, right? Like I was just getting paid to learn. And when you mentioned like you have all this leverage of working on the lending, commercial lending, like that was the same thing for you, because somebody was paying you to have exposure to all these multi-billion-dollar portfolios, and then when you had your own portfolio, it was, even if it wasn't a multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar portfolio, like you had the leverage and you understand numbers. So one of my advices for the ladies, and I want to open it back to you ladies, so we hear from you, is if you're planning to start your own business, to start investing in real estate, I think one of the biggest hacks is to start working for a company that does what you want to do. That way, you're learning, and somebody's paying you to learn, and eventually you can do that move of doing it on your own, but you didn't have to risk your capital and everything, put everything on the line right off the bat. So I think for me that was game changer, and sounds like it was for you, Bessie. But I want to hear from the ladies as well. Like, you know, tell us, why are you here? What questions do you have for Bessie? Like, are you looking to start your business, start investing, or any questions, comments? It's open floor.
I just want to say that it's beautiful to see both of your energy in action. It's contagious. So I think I came in late, so sorry about that, but it's really good. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff that you guys have shared that for people like me that has been mainly corporate for many, many years and trying to be independent. There are a lot of good things that you share about fear and taking action. Um, and one thing that for me, it's always been kind of my ticket to freedom, that it's not how much you make, it's how much you save, um, that you can get to do a lot of fun things, when you just don't leave, well, I think it has to do with personalities, and we can be wasteful. There's stages in your life that you can do that, but it's also having the being conscious about your steps. But yeah, just wanted to commend both of you. So that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marita. Yes, I think it's super, super important just to kind of just leave it up below our means, right? Like we hear it all the time, but when you are in the trenches and when you have the temptation, like I do want to go to Europe for 1 month, and I do want a bigger house and a nicer car and all these things that, for everybody's different things, right? Like just like Bestie was saying, like for me, shoes doesn't do anything for me, but probably traveling, different things. But just trying to be cautious about these decisions and prepare us mentally that I'm going for a bigger goal, right? Like I'm sacrificing probably right now the trip, but I know eventually I'm gonna be able to go with no hesitation, or not worry about how much is the hotel and how much are we spending here. And it's not gonna put us in a financial decision situation that we will regret later.
Yeah, and I would add to that, it's time is our probably biggest asset as well. Oh, actually health first, I would say, but then time after, right? And so sometimes when you think about maybe those choices you have to make, is how do I spend my time? And right, in my case, building the portfolio, I had people often say 9 to 5, but my job was more like 8 to 8. So it was that didn't really exist, but eventually, right, having the self-discipline to say, no, I'm going to be here from 8 to 5, and after 5 is my time. And what was I doing after 5 is learning how to underwrite as an investor, right? I had the lender side, or connecting with other investors on calls like these. And at one point, I was doing acquisitions or finding properties. So before 8 a.m., because a lot of them were on the East Coast, I would call the brokers, or during a lunch break. Again, this is your time. So you have commitment to your employer from 8 to 5, which you can complete. But before 8 and after 5, or weekends, right? Sometimes it's those, again, people call them sacrifices. I like to think of them as investments of time that you make, right? Maybe it's okay, I'm not going to watch a Netflix movie, but I'm going to invest that 1 hour this week into reading a book on real estate, right? Or connecting with an investor. So also how you allocate your time in addition to money is also uh, important, right? And something to be intentional about.
That's super important. And I think speaking with a lot of women, I also hear sometimes it is a 9 to 5 or another job that we have, but sometimes it's our spouse, the kids, it's just like understanding that we do have to make a decision and make a cautious decision that this is my time, right? Like either to work out or to learn about real estate or to grow your business. Like I'm gonna dedicate either 1 hour or 2 hours, but that you protect that time because there is always something, right? Like if you're
Right,
in a job, somebody requires you. If you are in a business, somebody needs you.
right,
Spouse, kids, there's always something that can fulfill that time really quick, and it's our responsibility to protect that and understand just because right now I'm not probably, like we're here, right? Like this is
right.
taking us time away from our spouses or the kids or
Mhm.
business, whatever, but understanding like this is also for the longer purpose, right? And even if I'm not right there, this is buying me time because I'm learning something that eventually, is gonna give me
Right.
the freedom, right? What we talked before.
Right, right. And I often too hear people talking about massive action. When most people hear that, they think, oh my God, I need to go from zero to hero. And that's not the case. Hey, if you can dedicate 30 minutes a day, do the math, that's about 3 hours more a week that you ended up dedicating to call it the side hustle project, whatever it may be, building your dream effectively, right? So it doesn't have to be, okay, now I'm gonna have to suffer and work, work 16 hours days. Yeah, maybe eventually you'll get there, but it all starts with one small step, but be consistent and persistent, right? If you make a
Yes.
commitment to yourself, okay, I'm going to be dedicating 30 minutes every day to learn more about real estate or invest in real estate, whatever it may, or build my own business, right? Some of you may be starting a business that's non-real estate related. Make that commitment to yourself effectively, right? But be consistent with it as well.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it. Consistency is what is gonna make the difference, right? Like I had, I made busy like year, and I think when I first started in the space and learning about commercial and all that. But it's just like it's a small world, and especially with everything that happened in the market for the last years, like you see so many people disappear. And it's just the people who are consistently showing up, consistently doing something, right? Of course, market and a lot of things happen, right? Ups and downs and business, market, real estate portfolios, whatever. But it's keep showing up over and over again and keeping to show up for ourselves. I think that's super, super important consistently. Awesome. Any questions, guys? I don't, anybody else? I know we have a lot of people here. Anita, do you have any questions? Last time we spoke, you were talking about, taking the leap of faith.
I can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't have any questions, but I think something you said that was kind of important is, because I've for several years been trying to learn about different kinds of investment, and for one reason or another, it's just not something I've made a move on, but also trying to learn all the things, right? So, like you said, focus on what do you really feel passionate about, or, and make a move on that thing to keep pushing forward. And instead of trying, and I'm like analysis paralysis on everything, right? Like I want to overlearn and read about, and I feel like I need to know absolutely everything about something before making a move. So it's just trying to get out of that mindset.
Mhm. Absolutely. No, it doesn't. And I appreciate you sharing that because I mean, I am a perfectionist as well. So that was definitely something that was, I think, slowing me down for many years. But the reality is you can't have it all figured out. And a lot of it we learn from experience. Hopefully, in most of the time, it's great experience, but it's also the seminars, right? I had some not so great experiences, but those have taught me so much. And again, I'm with those seminars, if you will, open doors to other opportunities. And so sometimes it's that fear of, well, what if I make a mistake or what if I fail? And definitely, right, in corporate America, right, especially as an employee, failure is a no, no, no. You're hired to do your job. You're not allowed to make mistakes. So I feel like it's ingrained in many of us, and that type of mindset, of course, works for that type of infrastructure, right? As an employee, you want to do a great job and not make or minimize the mistakes. But as an investor and entrepreneur, failing forward is how we learn the most. And so slowly, I think getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, I feel like, to me, the minute you start feeling completely comfortable, then you're not growing. um at least that's how I think for me, right? I can say that's for everyone, but yeah, looking for perfection, that was a very big, I can definitely relate to what you were sharing. And it, in those cases, it's also helpful to think of what is your why, right? I just finished actually the Time to Rise Summit with Tony Robbins, so I'm big follower of his, and he was talking about the decide, commit, resolve framework. And often he was giving like the New Year resolutions as an example, right? We all make New Year resolutions, and I learned an interesting fact that I guess February 12th, for some reason, I don't know why it's the 12th, a lot of people abandon those resolutions. And he was sharing, well, you need to have a very strong purpose. And so it took a number of years, right, before I jumped into real estate, but ultimately was, in my case, it was a very strong why that pushed me to take that action. And sometimes the why is a very positive event. For me, the why was fear, fear of getting laid off, fear of not being able to provide for my family, fear eventually, right, when I reached that crossroad of, do I stay down the path of corporate America or start my own firm, it was fear of regret. I didn't want to look back 20 years and think when I'm in my 60s, oh man, I should have started that business 20 years ago, and what would have happened. I didn't want to have those wonders. So um, having really that strong why, and it's different for every person, but discovering what is that why that will propel you forward, right, on the great days and on the not so great days. Because it's definitely not a at least for me, it hasn't been a straightforward journey. There have been ups,
Nobody.
downs. It's like I wish I could tell you, at least in my case, that wasn't the case. But having that strong why really to fall back on is something that helped me either take action or make those decisions.
Awesome. Any other questions? Elizabeth, Cindy, any questions or comments? Christina?
I just want to echo what Vessi and what Jazmin has said, because I was working in oil and gas in accounting when the 2008 election happened. So everybody got laid off. And the funny thing is that I had been doing tax returns as a hobby. And I was doing that as a hobby because it was something that I had done with my mom, because my mom didn't speak English. And so I would help her every year. So when I got laid off after getting my MBA, because same thing, I have this big, beautiful degree that's now just wallpaper,
Mhm.
right? So I was like, you know what? Never again will I ever put my future in somebody else's hands. So then I did my tax practice from there. from that recession. And so now 19 years later, here I am. It's a full-blown tax practice and it's successful and it grows every year, luckily and thanks be to God, so what you said, Bessie, about push through fear by taking thoughtful and inspirational action, that was my fear. I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay my student loans? How am I going to take care of my son? I was a single mom at that time. So I was like, no, I was like, I went to school for a reason. I know how to do these tax returns. I'm going to go at it full time. So here I am.
I love it. Yes. Love the story.
Yeah, I think this
Yeah.
is what makes the She community so great because, everybody, hearing those stories,
Mhm.
in the moment, it's just like you just see dark and you don't see how you're gonna make it. Like, I'm sure Elizabeth probably cried her eyes out and just like, just the fear was there, right? Like, I have a kid, I'm a single mom, I have student loans, I just got laid off. It's just like the fear is there, but it's like now looking back, it's like, whoa, that was a good opportunity for you to start your practice and look at you today. So yeah, no, God definitely works in different ways. So yeah, any last words of advice? I want to be respectful of your everybody's times, but any last words of advice, Bessie?
Well, I go back to actually the name of my company, right, which is Dream, Believe, Achieve, and so I definitely want to leave you with this message: is dream. Don't be afraid to dream big and be really clear on what those goals are, what those dreams are. Believe is believing in yourself and also surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals who can help you on your journey or others who you can help on their journey and achieve it. None of it would happen, and these dreams will just remain dreams if you don't take action. So again, taking thoughtful and inspired action to make those dreams real. And if you do want to learn more about investing, I actually published a book on underwriting. It's called Mastering Multifamily Underwriting, and it's actually specifically written for investors who are new to the multifamily space. And then we mentioned education. So if you're looking to get started on that journey or further develop along down that journey, it's a resource I would recommend.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And last thing, like, how can they reach out? Where can they find you, if they want to connect with you?
I'm very, very easy to find. So LinkedIn on social media is where I hang out the most, but I also on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube as well have an educational channel with 1,000, I mean, 200 plus, not 1,000 yet, but 200 plus educational videos. And then of course, my website for underwriting, that's masteringmultifamilyunderwriting.com, same as the book name. I saw someone asking in the chat. And then for passive investing, it's dbacapitalgroup.com. D is in dream, B is in believe, A is in achieve. So I have a ton of educational content there. So if you're looking to learn more, that will be another really free resource for you.
And I think we just run out of time, but Vessi also talks a lot about, the underwriting, venting the partners, venting the deals. We talk, off camera about like how every deal that we come across looks super good, the best deal in the world. You must invest here, but it comes to a lot of things that we need to vent and to get in the weeds, right? Like just so if you're looking to invest, get the book, connect with Bessie, and do informed decisions because everything has a risk. So, one more time, while I share my screen, Bessie, do you want to put it on the chat, the links to your book?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Right.
And before I forget, remember for those in Houston, we have our Valentine's event. It will be just more like a coffee. We have a space and we're just gonna connect with each other. We have a lot of activities and, it's always going to be a good event, not because me, because all the attendees and we all share our stories. We get inspired, we help, we support each other, and we all are like-minded. So if you can, please join us on February 11 in Houston. The address is there. I'll put the link on the chat. And thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Bessie. Thank you so much for all your time, for all the words of advice. It was a pleasure having you.
Absolutely, yes. I really enjoyed the conversation, and hopefully folks can take away at least one actionable steps that they can apply in their journey and make those dreams real.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies. We will see you next session. Bye.
Thank you.